strength to rise unafraid like the morning sun, taking on the day. Because when you shine, you light up the place. So I wish you strength. I wish you faith that you'll overcome.
Sorry, late joiners in the waiting room.
Whatever you face until your journey is done, beyond any words, as certain as grace, I wish you faith. I wish you could see the you that I see there at the edge of possibility. I pray that you will find all that you need. I wish you peace that comes from within, a gentle release of all that might have been, like the stillness that waits between waking and sleep. I wish you peace. I wish you could see the you that I see there at the edge of possibility. I pray that you will find all that you need. I wish you strength to rise unafraid like the morning sun, taking on the day. Because when you shine, you light up the place. So I wish you strength. I wish you faith. I wish you peace. I wish you strength.
Can't hear you. Unmute yourself, girl.
I was just talking. Thank you for letting me know. I was saying, good evening. This is Beverly Pryor. I'm the minister at Unity of the Hill Country. And that song that we opened with is a prayer to me. You know, I wish you peace. I wish you strength. So let's go around and introduce yourselves.
I'm Valerie Queen from Unity Spiritual Center in San Angelo.
Hi, Valerie.
I'm Maria Aguirre from Unity of Bernie.
Maria, good evening.
And Rocio Esquivel from Unity here in Kerrville.
Hello, Unity. Hello, Rocio. I'm like, hello, Unity. Hello, Rocio. Mark and Gayleen.
Hello.
They're from Unity of the Hill Country as well.
Oh,
Thank you
Judith?
for hosting this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Judith? You're on mute too.
I'm Judith Morales from Unity of Brownsville.
Great, glad you're here. Birdie, you have to unmute yourself.
Howdy, I'm Birdie Shocker, and I'm from Unity in San Antonio and Unity in Bernie. I'm so lucky to get to work for 2 Unity churches.
So awesome.
Great.
Birdie is the one who's been coordinating all of this effort to have multiple area Unity centers get together for different events like this, and we really appreciate her effort.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
Oh,
you.
you're so welcome. It all started with Reverend Jay. He let me crash his meditation.
Tommy?
oh, hi. I'm Tommy. I'm the minister at Unity Rio Grande Valley in Florida, Texas. And I want to toot Birdie's horn. Birdie, I'm not trying nobody toots your horn. I'll toot it for you. She's going to be on Unity online radio tomorrow being interviewed. Yay, Birdie.
So it's tomorrow already. Yay.
Tomorrow morning, right?
Tomorrow morning. Okay.
Yeah, we put a notice on our Facebook page so that people will know. Yeah, of course. We're excited to hear your interview. That'll be great.
Thank you very much.
Someone
Thank you.
iPhone sales iPhone, do you want to introduce yourself?
That's me, Kara.
Oh,
Kara from Kerrville, Unity. And
Kara.
I don't have a book or anything, but I just thought I'd listen and see what this is about.
you will enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've prepared slides and I'm pulling quotes out of the book. It's this covers the old cover, but it's The Universe is Calling. And we basically told everyone, you know, you can get a lot out of it because everything we're always talking about in Unity is consciousness. That's the new cover. That's right, Rocio. They always update the covers and the introductions and things like that. So let's just get centered in prayer quickly, and then we'll start with the discussion. So if we'll close our eyes together, and together take a deep breath in. Slowly pulling that breath in and holding it at the top and slowly letting it out. And just with that breath releasing, just notice as your shoulders begin to drop and you just start releasing tension in your body. And another breath in. A little pause at the top. And this breath, we just let go of the busyness of the day. And we allow ourselves to drop into this now moment, fully present. The breath connects us mind, body, and spirit, and connects us one with another. And in this moment, we raise that awareness of our oneness. We come together when we claim this time as sacred, and we know that it's here to help us expand our understanding of our own consciousness and how we work with that absolute good, that divine expressing as us. And for this truth and so much more, we simply say, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Okay, unless someone has something they want to share, I'll just jump right in. Good. And you can keep your, unless you have a dog that might bark like mine, you can keep your mics on in case you decide you have a comment or something you'd like to share. This is the schedule that we agreed to last week. So last week we did the introduction and prologue in chapters 1 and 2. This week we're going to cover chapters 3, 4, and 5. And next week, because it's Labor Day, we will not have class, but we'll pick up on the 14th with the next 3 chapters. It's easy to keep up with because it's 3 chapters a week. So we're going to start with the chapter on karma. And it's really interesting how he approaches it. It's called What About Karma? But here's what he says. He says, we always set the tone, the standard of our tomorrows in the way we deal with the world today. This is the fundamental law of sequence and consequence, or if you will, the law of consciousness, or karma to the Hindu. But let me read to you out of the book, because it's quite a bit to have put on the screen. He talks about the law of karma. Now he says, of course it varies, just like every belief system, there are different ways that people express the understanding of karma, but this is one of the ways, the key ways that in Hinduism, he says, the law of karma, more than anything else, explains the Hindu outlook on life. The word is loosely translated as destiny or fate. You are what you are in respect to your fortune and your place in life because of your karma. Karma fixes the consequences of your acts. All mistakes, failures, and sins must be atoned for in some way at some time. They become a karmic debt that must be ultimately, from lifetime to lifetime, be paid. In the Eastern belief, karma explains everything in one's world: suffering, blessings, sorrows, joys, pauper and prince, the pitifully sick and the radiantly healthy. Nothing one does or ever lost, nothing unaccounted, nothing unaccounted for, nothing is forgotten, discarded, or irrelevant. So the point that he wants to make, his point that he is making in this chapter is that he doesn't agree with that concept of karma. He goes on to say how people in the West have really adopted this idea of karma, and they throw this word around, not really knowing and not really understanding what it is that they're saying. The way that it's accepted in Hinduism by many is that is your karma, full stop, no way around it. And what he's saying is it's more than that, especially when you say this fundamental law of sequence and consequence. He says, I do not believe in a God or a karmic law that punishes, not even a cause and effect that punishes. He says, you are punished, and I put the quote around punished because I don't think that's what he doesn't mean punished. He's when he says, I don't believe in punish, then he uses the word, but this is, you are punished for, not for your sins, but by them. You're punished not for your sins, but by them. We know sin to mean error thought. So you're not punished for having error thoughts. You're punished by having them. Any thoughts or comments you want to make?
That makes a lot of sense. It makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
He says, anybody else?
I think most of us, we've been seekers as long as most of us have. We've gone through the whole karma thing, 70s, 80s, way back then. I did a lot of reading and stuff, and the karma thing seemed to make sense that, you get what it's a give and take type thing. But I think I released myself from all that stuff, as Butterworth is talking about. It's just like, because it's an impossible trap. If there's a consequence for every tiny minuscule, I step on an ant and I don't know it, and there's a certain degree of karma, like, whoa, when am I going to get out of this trap? Never. So I don't know. I think we can rise above the whole concept. And so, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and that's basically what he's saying in this in this chapter, Tommy, you were saying, you started to say reap and sow. Well, that's very biblical. You reap what you sow. And he also addresses that comment a little bit later as well, because it's all consciousness. I mean, it's the karmic debt that holds people back. That idea of karma, I think sometimes we use it interchangeably with the concept that sometimes we say God's will, as if we have no influence over God's will. It's like it's something that's put upon us, just like we have no power over our karma because we carry it forward with us. But that's a misunderstanding. He says on page 38, where we are dealing with consciousness. And hard as it is sometimes to accept, there are no experiences unrelated to consciousness. And then he goes on down a little bit further. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Beverly. I think we can live in that karmic law, and I think there's a purpose for it, but I think the whole point is that we rise above it at some point. For example, and I've told people before, it's like, you know, it's there's a consequence for killing someone in this society. You know, you get punished. You know, thou shalt not kill, whatever. But see, I no longer need that law. I no longer need it. So the consciousness rises above the law and says, I no longer need, I know that law, for some people, they need the consequence of you're going to be imprisoned type thing. But at some point, you just don't need the law anymore because
you're saying you don't need it to prevent you from killing someone.
No, I don't need it because I wouldn't do it.
Right. But the law, I mean, that's a difference. I mean, spiritual law and human law, civil law, are different things. You know, yeah, we have punishment because collectively as a society in the world, we're not very advanced. So we still punish people for making mistakes. Even killing someone is most often a mistake someone has made, and rarely is a conscious choice. I mean, there are sociopaths for sure, but they're a small percentage of the population, and maybe they should be separated and punished, but punishment doesn't work as a society. And it's not something that works from that concept of what God might possibly do to us.
I wanted to go back to what the quote from him that you had on the screen, because I was intrigued with the idea of not punished for the sins, but by the sins. And I think my experience.
Yeah. By, and think of that as by your own error thoughts.
Right. And in my experience, I know that in the past I have carried around just gobs of baggage that has gotten in the way of my progress. And when I finally came to a point in my life where through therapy and the discovery of a new type of God, so to speak, new type of divine belief system, and becoming in touch really for the first time with what I call the inner child, that's very real to me. Those combinations of things have caused me to be freed from a lot of that previous baggage, and sometimes it still pokes its head up every now and then, and I have to go through some type of thinking process or whatever it takes to free myself again from that. But to me, that's very intriguing, the way he worded it. I've never thought of it being worded that way, but it really resonates with my experience.
Yeah, because you're not suffering because you had incidents in your life, but by the fact that they've happened, you're not being punished for it.
Right. But
the only way we're being punished by it is to keep bringing it along with us, right? Go ahead.
Right. I have a choice whether to continue to free myself from it or continue to be burdened by it. I have a choice.
Yeah, and I think all that kind of work is in layers, right? As we raise our consciousness, we move further and further away from all that. But it's not just one flash cut. I used to, when I was younger, I think I've already addressed that issue with my grandmother, you know, and here it is again. But you only address it at the consciousness that where you are at that moment. Thanks for sharing that, Bella. Letitia, you had your hand up?
Did I?
Yeah.
Are you?
I think he said that in
Yeah,
the book,
Letitia,
does he
just a
say,
minute, Rocio.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I was gonna say, he says in the book that like karma and that, but it's that it doesn't exist in the spiritual sense of it. So to me, I think we keep bringing our physical into it, and that, and in the physical, I guess karma or you reap what you sow and all of that, it makes sense. But in the spiritual world, we don't make mistakes. In the spiritual world, there is no sin. So you wouldn't have any bad karma or good karma or anything. You just, your spirit, and you're perfect.
I think that goes to what he's talking about with sequence and consequence, right? There's a sequence of events and we make those choices, whether we bring something forward into this part of our life from the past or if we choose to let it go. And then there's a consequence for that sequence. And it's sort of like the reap what you sow, but you were leading a little bit into that 5th chapter on grace, because I think that's where he talks about where, you know, you have those holy instants, I call them, but there's grace that you don't necessarily suffer the consequences of everything that you sow, because there is grace.
Can I just say that from everything that I've hear you saying and everybody else, and what he was saying in his book or the quotes that you use, it sounds like he's defining karma as just punishment, right?
Well, he is referring specifically to this one sect of Hinduism that I read that passage about.
Mm-hmm.
That is the traditional Hindu, and karma did come from the Hindu religions and that belief system that you're carrying over karma from a past life, and that determines your lot in life and your health. It's a way of explaining away, just like people use God's will. You know, well, that baby was born with no arms. Well, that's God's will. They might say in Hinduism that, or people who believe in this strict version of karma, that was karma from the past life, that this child is being punished in this life. So he's not calling karma punishment. He's actually saying this is the traditional way that people view karma. But it can also be, no, he was saying both. It could be also, you have good karma, so you were born into a wealthy family. You have good karma, so you have vibrant health. Karma is just sort of an explanation to sort of put everything outside of ourselves, just like God's will. And I'm throwing in the God's will part. I'm making that correlation because that always bugs me when people say everything's God's will, as if nothing has anything to do with it. Yeah, go ahead, Rocio.
No, I was saying inshallah, like,
Inshallah.
like the movie says, no, this is what I'm going to do because I'm going to do it. And that was Lawrence of Arabia when he went to rescue somebody, because he says, no, that was written. He says, no, it isn't. I can go pick him up. I guess that's it. That's getting out of the.
No, inshallah, you know, and God willing, I mean, that's the same kind of thing, right? God willing, like it's outside of our influence or control. You know, God willing, it's a way of kind of wishing or hoping rather than knowing and having faith.
That it's here. It's not out there again.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
this was the quote that.
Is it karma or no karma?
What now?
Where are we in unity? Is there karma or no karma? Where are we?
Well, I mean, we don't really teach karma, but this is an Eric Butterworth book, and he's saying that he disagrees with this idea of karma that comes in this particular way. He says, the great irreconcilable difference between the classic concept of karma and the truth of the law of compensation, the Eastern centers on our past, let's see, the Eastern concept of karma centers on our past and ultimate destiny. And this is, there is little hope or promise of freedom today, which we don't agree with that in unity. And he says karma becomes a cycle of penalty and retribution that continues on from one incarnation to the next. The person is in effect chained to the relentless moving wheel by the accumulated effects of the sins of past lives. Thus, each person is on a weary treadmill traveler from birth to death, from death to birth. So he says the resulting effect on the Hindu is a senseless hopelessness and futility. So this is not what we teach. But what he is saying is that that this idea is irreconcilable with Jesus's teachings, thinking of karma as judgment, something that's going to see that we get punished for our sins. He says, but I do not believe in a God or a karmic law that punishes.
But and that goes back to, you're not punished not for your sins, by them. It's like, if I know that I killed somebody, well, even if the world doesn't know and the law hasn't put me in jail, I still know it. And that weighs on my consciousness no matter what.
Even
whether I believe in God or not.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's, if we're just talking about killing someone, what about just having a negative attitude? What about just criticizing people all the time? You're punished by that criticism.
And
you're not punished for it, right? Nobody's going to punish you for being a critical person, but you're punished by it because of the fact that you're separating yourself from others. By criticizing others, you are saying they are lesser than you. So you're pushing a separation between yourself and another with simple criticism and negativity, and being out of alignment with your own divine nature. In that way, you're creating separation with your own inner source, with your own inner truth.
And sometimes we criticize others for what we don't want to look at within ourselves. And so by continuing to make it objective and make it about somebody else, we may be denying ourselves the inner growth that we're being called to have. And so we're not moving forward either.
I think that's a really good point, Valerie. I think people who are just habitually critical of others are worse on themselves. If you got inside their head and you heard the things they were saying to themselves, they're probably even worse than what they say about other people. But it feels, it's easier to distract yourself from the voice in your own head when you're pointing it out at other people. Let's go on, and we're just about going to wrap up karma here. Because it was really a short chapter, quite honestly, but everything he says so much in every chapter, even when they're short. He says, no matter what the cause of the karmic debt, the effects can be dissolved by knowing the truth, by raising our own consciousness above the level of sin. And again, that level of sin means error thinking. We raise ourselves above that negativity and criticism and self-condemnation. He says, no matter, let's see, I just read that, no matter what the cause, And then he goes on down here and he's talking about the dynamic of prayer, often overlooked by Christians, is that when you enter into thine inner chamber and shut the door, and he references Matthew 6:6, you enter the realm of spiritual consciousness where the higher law of spirit overrides and supersedes the lower law of mental and physical realms. Thus, the new insights in truth reveal the way to freedom from karma. So it's like what we talked about last week, is that it's what the consciousness we pray from. It's not what we pray to. So we get into that center and we pray from that. Remember the quote about then once you're in that centered place in that higher consciousness, the spoken word moves out into manifestation. So the next chapter is called Concerning Grace. Did anybody have any further comments about karma?
No.
Okay. I'm feeling like I keep trying to cut down what I want to share with you from the chapters there, but they're so good. Probably should have stretched it out and just done 2 chapters a week, because there's just so much in every one. And so let's see, the first quote is, grace is a very simple explanation of the natural flow of the creative process in the individual. I don't know if anybody's ever taken the creative process in the Bible or read I think it's In the Flow is one of Eric Butterworth's books that really addresses this. But the beginning, Genesis, is the description of the creative process that happens within a human being, but is also in that divine realm. He says, simply because you are the activity of God expressing him as yourself. So this grace can happen. Grace is the very explanation of that flow. Have you ever had an experience of flow? I'd really like to hear from anybody. I know we talked a little bit, Maria, last week about sometimes when you pray with people, you feel that movement of something greater moving through you when you speak and you say that it flows through you, the prayer flows through you, and that's from that consciousness. Anybody else have states of flow?
I was
On a
in the,
weekly basis. Oops, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt anybody.
Okay, Rocio, why don't you contribute, and then let's Bertie jump in. And Letitia also.
When you get in touch with, we're part of the whole universe, the ants, the stars, everything. And I had an experience in tourism. I was in the Amazon and on a boat in the middle of the night, no sounds, nothing. They turned off the motor, and we're just looking at the sky. That was so many stars. Like, I didn't know there were so many. I mean, there was no space empty, and that connection, and I felt that grace, that how cannot, or who can doubt that I'm part of that. I mean, it was like taking me off the earth and be in heaven.
Yeah, the collapse of time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you are made of star stuff, so that makes sense that you felt that.
Yeah, it was quite unusual.
Thank you, Rocio. Bertie, did you have something to say? And then Letitia?
I'm so lucky. Creation is my job. And I have taken that class, The Creative Process, and it was really a game changer to have, I was doing the process before, but just to have that description of it. But to work with people to put together an order of service every week and coordinate the musicians, and it's a very prayerful thing for me. All you got to do is take a look at my desk where I do all of this to know. And social media, I find very, very creative, and maybe I mean, there's a lot of garbage on there, self-admittedly, but it feels good to be able to contribute to the good that's on there, you know. So I consider myself pretty lucky that I get to be as creative as I am in my jobs with Unity.
Yeah, I think it's especially when we're in service, it's very important to get in that center before you decide on songs or whatever. But you know, sometimes if I don't have a chance to coordinate, I always tell the musicians or whatever, you know what, we're going to just trust, because the same thing that flows through me flows through you, and Divine Mind knows what we're here to do, and it'll all come together. 100% of the time it does. Letitia, I'm going to put myself on mute because my dog's decided to be noisy here.
He's cute. So, well, I was going to say, I think my whole life I've always attributed to ignorance, but I tell people, because I mean, I'm a small person, and I mean, I flunked the second grade, so I always tell people I'm not very intelligent, but I've always put myself out there. And then I always somehow, I said, I don't know, if I were to look back and say, well, how did I do this? I can't explain it. I can't even think or fathom, how did I accomplish this? But, you know, to me, it's just that creativity that I just don't even think about it. I just like do. And sometimes I tell people I'm like the Forrest Gump. You know, he didn't really like think about it, but he like did a lot of things. And so that creative power that we have is where I feel like I can tap into it. And as long as I don't think, it happens. It, you know, it manifests.
You're exactly right. When we're not thinking, you know, because we can be in the flow, but when we go into our head, then that will sometimes just sabotage us, because we're limited, because as human beings, we have, you know, a limited capacity. But from Divine Mind, there are no limitations. So he goes on to say, grace explains the inadequacy of the idea of karma, the endless cycle of cause and effect. He said, God's desire to express through you and as you is so great that you never completely reap the harvest of your error, and you always reap more than you sow.
That's beautiful.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, somebody else want to read that?
A page. You have a page?
No, just read it off the screen. Can you see the screen?
Oh, I'm sorry.
God's desire to express through you. Read that part.
God's desire to express through you and as you is so great that you never completely reap the harvest of your error, and you always reap more than you sow.
Wow, I love that. What page, do you remember what page that's on?
Let's see. I'll look it up and I'll let you know.
Yeah, I love that.
In my mind here.
My book's supposed to come in tomorrow.
Okay.
So that means that we're always expanding, and we're always have more than what we had before.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we're always at a more full expression of ourselves. And just think
Right.
about that, with all the things that we've done in our lives, as we continue to just let go of limited thoughts and the way things are meant to be, or what we think somebody else thinks, the more we let go, the more we unfold. So we never really reap the harvest of those error thoughts of childhood, where girls can't do this and boys can't be like that, and you grew up in poor family, or you grew up in a family without love, or whatever. We don't have to reap the harvest of that error. So the idea of karma, where you're just stuck and it takes a whole lifetime, and you've got to, you know, do all your work now so you get it in your next lifetime, which is futile. It's just futile.
You know,
love
the,
it.
And
the first,
I'm
the
sorry.
first two, oh, who's talking? Okay, go ahead. Who's gonna go? Well, I was gonna say that the first two lines in that sentence, God's desire. It's interesting to read that because sometimes we pray for grace. We ask, for grace, but then it says God's desire. So I was just wondering before I went back and read the first two words. I was wondering, do you have to pray for grace, or do you automatically get grace? It's just, that's just thrown on you.
Automatic.
So
Sweetie.
Tommy, you were going to say automatic?
Yep.
So yes, so it's there 100% of the time because God is always present. What we are praying, we get into that consciousness
Birdie's
of
there.
awareness. Then we pray from that consciousness so that we have the awareness that grace is always present.
And I wanted to add to that, this is a major distinction of the Old Testament, New Testament, whereas the Old Testament would represent that karmic old law, whereas the New Testament would represent the grace new law. That's just like,
Yeah. But you're right that there's I'm sure that there's grace always being thrown at us, and some of us are not even aware of it. It's just like we focus on the negative stuff and we don't get to see, the good that is really being imparted to us. Wow.
Well, and it's like we're a fish and we're in the ocean and we're always in grace, just as fish is in the ocean. We're always in that substance of grace because we're always in the substance of God. So it doesn't get thrown at us. We're never separated from it except in our own consciousness.
That is amazing.
I think we have to always be making a decision about what we want to align ourselves with. And if we want to align ourselves with the consequences of previous actions and stay in that rut or whatever, then we have a choice to do that. We have that free will. Mm-hmm. But I think God always puts a way out. And it took me a long time to learn that. Really, when I came to Unity was when I started learning that. But I guess those are kind of my words. But even if somebody goes to prison for an action, there are doors in prison. Look at how many people go to prison, but tap into what education or possibilities there are for self-reform, and people that really do get rehabilitated, or even if they were in there because of a mistaken identity or something like that, they find God's grace there and what's meant for them, just like Joseph in the Bible found when he was in prison. He found doors there to minister to the other people that was the door to lead him to where he went ultimately.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. My dogs decided to get frisky, so I keep muting. So I just want to take it to something, it keeps going to murder and prison and all these like big criminal activities. I want to bring it back to every day. So when you have that choice, if you're at Bridge Club and the lady on the left of you starts wanting to gossip and talk about the lady at the table three tables over, you're at a choice point. Because if you engage in idle gossip in that moment, you are out of alignment with your divine nature. You are out of alignment with God within you, expressing as you, that knows there's just as much divinity in that person as in you and everyone else in the room, regardless of how they show up and regardless of their behaviors. So when you start down that road of gossiping, you are at that choice point and you are making a decision of how you want to feel and how you want to be. So it's not just murder and prison. It's not crimes. It's little things that we do that make that difference in our own consciousness. Carly, stop it. I'm sorry, my dog is a puppy, and she's just.
It's a matter of trusting that grace is given to you every single instant. You are showered with that grace. So why do I doubt myself? Why do I have to look at the recipe?
And I just want to challenge the language again, that it's not given to you or showered upon you. You live in it. It exists as you and through you. So it's not something outside of you.
No.
Yeah. It's where you place your awareness. Are you placing your awareness?
Like, you don't have to go to the university. You don't have to have learned all these books and taken all these courses. It's something that can be so natural if you trust that is there and you follow it and you put it into practice, and not gossiping or trusting yourself. And yes, you can drive. Yes, you can walk. Yes, you can do that because God's with you. God's in you. You're with me. It's part of the divinity.
I like what you said about, it's not about education. It's about awareness, right? It's about bringing that awareness, because many of us, I think all of us at some time have had that moment where we just know something. We don't know how we know it. We just know it. And we can share it with someone. If they ask for the reference, we couldn't tell you where we learned it because it's part of divine mind. All information, all knowledge, all wisdom is available to us all the time because we are divine mind. We're uniquely within this, an expression of divine mind, but we're all also the divine mind that exists everywhere present all the time, all knowing, all powerful. That which is God, that we call God. God sort of shrinks down what the truth is because the word God has been co-opted to have all these other meanings. But it is source and substance, as Charles Fillmore called it, that's always there underneath everything, and as a part and an expression of everything. God's flow is constant, he says. Our experience of it changes with our consciousness. So as we keep our mind focused on the good, on love, on joy, on peace, on good for everyone, including ourselves, the law of consciousness is inviolable. The high consciousness heals and the lower consciousness weakens.
But it doesn't take it away.
No,
it just weakens.
It just weakens because when you, just like we were talking about, if you did start gossiping about the lady, it might feel fun in that moment because you're bonding with the lady who started the gossip, and all of a sudden the two of you are sort of sharing in a moment, but you'll come away from that feeling in disharmony with your divine nature. And you won't feel good. And that lowering of your own consciousness weakens your immune system. It weakens your ability to deal with stress and anxiety. It weakens your awareness of who you are in this world. And so we'll move on to the final chapter for this week, and it's called The Cosmic Counterpart. And you know, I kept going, cosmic counterpart. I like alliteration, but what does he really mean by that? I even went to the dictionary to look up counterpart. So your counterpart is that something equal to you. Your counterpart in, you know, I'm in this church and Tommy's my counterpart in FAR. He says, in an orderly universe, the need and its answer are always one. The need and its answer are always one. Just drink that in for a moment. If you have a need, there's already an answer. It exists. It's what we call in metaphysics, the divine paradox, right? The need and the answer are one. They're not, you can't have the need without having the answer. You can't have the answer without it fulfilling a need. In the transcendence of mind, which is what we do when we meditate, that's why last week he was saying meditation is central to prayer. It's the core of prayer, because first you have to get out of mind and get into awareness of your divine nature. The transcendence of mind is the answer to any need. Is present and follows as does 4 from 2 plus 2, meaning it's just like this. These were his words, and I struggled with it earlier. That's why I kind of stopped. Follows as 4 from 2 plus 2. So 4 is 2 plus 2 is always 4. So that's what he's saying. The answer to any need is present and is mathematically available. It's a law, just like mathematics, that the answer is already there if you get out of your mind.
Can I share something, Beverly?
Yes.
That statement, in an orderly universe, the need and its answer are always one. The other night, I don't know when it was, a week, 2 weeks ago, whatever, I brought up something I had heard, and Bertie looked it up, and it was from St. Francis of Assisi. Do you remember that, Bertie? And I said that what I had heard, it said, that which you are looking for, you are looking with. And so that's what that says.
Mm-hmm.
And that reminded me of that. Do you remember that, Bertie?
That which you're looking for, you're looking with.
You're looking with. So go back to that screen, Beverly, and it says that basically that what you're certain, what was it again? In an orderly universe. Well, you can just read it to us.
The answer and the need are always one. The need and the answer and the need are always
so
one.
So you would say, what I'm looking for, I'm looking with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's from you. You're looking for it. You're looking with the knowledge of it already present within you.
Right. In other words, it's right in front of your nose and you can't see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's within you, whether it's, repressed in your subconscious, whether it's something in divine mind that you have yet to access, because what we do is we get in our head. We get in our head looking for the answers, when really all we have to do is get quiet. Go ahead.
When studying certain things, like this particular quote and the idea itself, it's like an introduction and you're trying to learn something. And I always find that sometimes if I experience it, then I really get it. If I have an experience of it, then I get it. And the need and its answer are always one. I hear it. I hear it. I can't say that the words by themselves actually express or resonate with me. But what Reverend Tommy said about visioning and stepping into it, I actually had the opportunity to make, like have the picture of whatever the problem was or whatever it was that I was trying to accomplish, and then seeing myself step into it, and then it materializes. So it was like an experience. So, I love to study and read, and I'm having a little trouble with that particular phrase. Need and its answer are always one. And I know about oneness. We are all one. And
so the phrase that the desire is put in your heart by God, right? You've heard that. If you have a desire, there's already something for you. The desire was placed in your heart by God.
See, I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
Okay,
No.
so when you have a desire, where do you think it comes from?
Just,
Especially,
I guess it does
if
come
you're
from
in your
God, but I
system.
never thought of it that way. I always
Yeah.
think of it as something that's kind of unique to my own situation or my personality, or I don't know. But
Well, I mean, if you have specifically creative desires, right? Because,
Right.
okay, if my sister gets a new pair of pants and I like her pants and then I want to have a new pair of pants, that is a mental desire that I have created out of jealousy, right? That's obvious where that desire came from. She looks good in her pants and I want some pants like that, some stupid thing like that. But when we have a desire for service, when we have a desire for self-expression, when we have a desire to create, that desire comes from that divine intelligence that is alive within us. The reason we have that desire is because we already have the creativity. Maybe we're blocking our awareness of it because when we were 4, our big brother could draw better than we could. And so he became the artist and we were not the artist, but we still have that desire to be creative because it's already there. So the desire, the need, and the answer are already there because the need comes about from the desire that exists within you already.
Desire of the Father, I heard someone comment.
Yeah, Mark, you want to come on and say something further about that? Mark?
Well, I don't really have any comment on that. It's just that I remember hearing years ago the desire of the Father.
Yeah.
Like it's Latin.
Yeah.
The Father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the Father is that
That's a
divine
really good
that lives
question.
within us.
And it's, I'm not exactly a practitioner in that area, but I do know that what people do is when they're first intubated, we do everything we need to make sure they're comfortable. So if
So the need and desire are one. So what the patient needs and what you provide for the patient is one and the same. I don't know. I guess, you know, it's so interesting because sometimes you can hear it one way and you don't get it, and then you might hear it a different way and you get it.
So here's what you do is you, in your meditation,
Yeah.
you affirm before you go into your meditation that I will have the awareness. I will have this experience, and I'm open and willing to have an experience that helps me to have a greater understanding of how this need and desire exist as one within me. And it comes because when you claim it, it always comes. That's how Jesus taught us how to pray. So we're just about out of time. I love the discussion. Let me see if there's anything else that may be the last of what I pulled. Let's see. God's guidance is the immanence of divine mind that is present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. So you know how people come up with the same idea in several different places, and sometimes people think someone stole their idea, but the idea is in the ethers, it's in divine mind at the same time at every point. So I don't know if you are familiar with Emily Dickinson. She said that she would be out in the field and a poem would just come flying across the field and she would have to run back to the house to write it down before it just continued and blew right by her. And he goes on to say, so guidance, the clear direction in whatever you may be doing, it is always present. And the important decisions are not to be made, but to be discovered.
I like that.
So they're discovered from that same level of consciousness that understands that the need and the answer are one, and we just need to discover what it is. He says, prayer does not relieve you from responsibility. You know, the old way of praying, supplicating to God, please, please, please help me. Prayer works according to and within your own consciousness. So if we want to have a strong prayer practice, and we want to see effectual prayers, then we have to mind our consciousness at all times. He says it can be a strengthening means of lifting you in consciousness, but the effects will be determined by the level of your awareness.
Mm.
So even at bridge parties, even at the gas pump in the grocery station, we have to be aware of the thoughts, the judgment that we have towards others and ourselves. The object of prayer is to expand your awareness of infinite mind, which is present where you are. Infinite mind is present where you are. The true prayer is the supermind process, which is the creative process we talked about earlier. And the divine mind counterpart within is the answer present even before we call. The answer present even before we call. That goes back to the desire is placed in your heart by God. And you are never further away from your answer to the most complicated challenge than the flow in mind of one idea. Getting in divine flow, a cosmic counterpart that contains limitless words and descriptive phrases that will flow forth effortlessly. If I can acknowledge the process and believe that it can be done, we just have to know that this is how it works. And the more that we accept that this is how it works, the more we'll see evidence of it. Just like you were saying, Maria, the more we'll see the outworking of it in our life. Your prayer is to acknowledge it and to rest in that consciousness. So if you're looking for a lost item, if you're asking for healing, whatever it is that you're looking for, claim it. That's why Jesus say, pray claiming it is done.
I think I just need to realize and to embrace a new idea, which is there are different things that come from God and that is placed in our heart by God. Like if you talk about the will of God and my will being one, I have no problems with that. I mean, I can see and I can feel that completely, but I had never heard desire. So it's kind of like a new word that I'm being introduced to. It's like, oh, it's not only the will of God, but it's also the desire. And then it's not, when you talk about praying and there's a need and you're looking for an answer, they're actually one and the same, so it's just adding more and expanding more of what you have embraced, I get, or what you come to understand.
Well, just affirm that you will see evidence and it will come to you. Letitia, go ahead.
I just had something. I've never been like I pray or have any ritual prayer or anything, but ever since Judas does the power of 8, and that has been the most that I've ever felt like prayer, like it works. I mean, she knows how to channel it where it flows through her because I can feel it. It's taken me to another level. It's just been wonderful.
And that's a mastermind process, right, Judith? No, it's not.
No, it's Lynn McTaggart's Power of 8.
Okay, it's a book.
Well, there is a book called
Okay.
that, but it's a process, and it's the result of about 30 to 40 years of research on her part.
Yeah, I've read her work on the field.
Mm-hmm. Well, she has several books, so this is way beyond the field. It's way beyond it, but it is also based on the research and the reality that we are one, and that in order to move prayer to, she doesn't call it prayer,
Yeah.
but how I've adapted it to unity is with the knowledge that in order to get into that state of consciousness, we have to understand and accept and feel that we are one, first of all, and you have to really feel that unity with all humanity. And then the next step is to feel that that unity also is unconditional love. And that's where the magic comes in. And then focusing the intention together on a single concise statement or desire or intention.
Yes, and that's what Mastermind does. And so it's all a form, and I think that's beautiful and it's powerful, and it's taking that science aspect of truth.
And we have seen miracles in every single class I've taught, every time we've done it. Absolute miracles that have happened. And I've taught a whole lot of different healing modalities at Unity, and they've all worked. People have had miracles, but this is the most powerful that I have found so far.
Wonderful. I'm excited to hear that.
Well,
Letitia,
actually, let me just share a quick story. Last week,
sure.
One of our board members was rushed to the ER. Her vitals were so low that she almost died. And we did a power of 8 for her, and her kidney specialist, she only has one kidney. Her kidney specialist simply a few days later, could not believe the numbers. He was just awestruck. He had never seen it happen. And this is a man with probably 30, 40 years of experience. So he's not a new doctor. And he just absolutely could not even begin to believe that these were the same records. This is the same person. This is the woman that almost died in the ER.
Yeah, I completely believe that. I mean, I think that there is that place. Scientists call it unified field. We call it divine mind, divine intelligence. There is that oneness. Mm-hmm. And when we come together with powerful intention, I mean, God gave us dominion. And, we're just remembering. So I think that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that with people. And thanks for bringing it up, Letitia. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that in relation to the book, it helped me get into that consciousness. To me, it's like the same thing that we're studying in the book, only that when we do it, it gets me to that other consciousness that I think is what he's talking about in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you have a tool like that too, it gives you a structure, right? I mean, right now we're talking about ideas and changing our mind and our focus. We're not using a particular practice, but I think tools, a technique, whatever you call it, whatever works for you. I love to try everything because, I think whatever it is, if I can let myself get out of my head and move into my heart space, then I can connect with it. So
I'd like to add one other thing, not about the power of it, but for Maria. This might help you. Abraham Hicks said, or Abraham through Esther Hicks says, if the universe gives you a desire, it gives you the means to fulfill it. So if you have a question, what Butterworth is saying is trust that the answer is also there. And it is simply a process of discovery. So it is there. Your job is just to trust that you will find it, that it will be revealed to you, and it will. It's just it always comes back to trust.
And if you can't trust, that's why affirmations and, just kind of coming into discussions like this, you slowly sort of let go of those barriers to accepting a new way of looking at something.
Mhm.
So the more things that you can explore, the more experiential you can make it, the more that you can let down those walls and move through. And just like we talked about last week, take the robe and drop it, let go of what you believed in the past and move into a new way of embracing the possibilities.
And I think another aspect of that is a benefit of these kind of groups is to understand that as people relate their stories of success or discovery, you can easily think, well, if somebody else can do that, I can do it too.
Yeah.
And you can, you absolutely can. It's just expanding your thought processes a little tiny bit or a lot.
Sometimes it's a quantum leap.
That was Charles.
Yeah.
That was Charles Fillmore's reason.
And see, the thing of it is that the thing about asking questions and knowing you're going to get an answer, I get that.
Mhm.
And then trusting that you're going to get the answer, I get that. It was just putting the words need and answer as being one. It's just semantics. It doesn't have
It's going to just drop right in for you.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to click,
it's
click,
just
click. Yeah.
It's just another way of saying it. And like when we were talking about karma earlier, I mean, to me, that's also a term that maybe the Hindus use a term, but in the Christian, they would use reaping and sowing. So it was just a different jargon for, different religions and so forth.
Well, the thing that he's talking about with the karma is kind of like you're stuck in it. It's sort of a way of explaining,
right.
like your lifetime is this because of that.
And
it doesn't give you any freedom or
because even in sowing and reaping, you don't have to be stuck there. You can, like, if you're reaping something, you can actually learn from it and move on and do better. Yeah.
Yes.
Tommy, you had something to say earlier?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Well, again, we've run over, but not as bad as last week. So, and I'm afraid we might still, because we're trying to cover 3 chapters. So I apologize that we weren't able to stay on the mark. But I love the discussion, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate and the gratitude I feel for all of your contributions. It's just a very rich experience for me, and I thank you so much. And with that, we will just say thank you and good night.
Thank you.
And good night. God bless you.
Thank
God bless everyone. Y'all have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.